fine music lovers. Squiggly Myers here for Rock the Alphabet with another Backstage Pass interview. On the line, I have the extraordinary musician, composer, visionary, Kristopher Battilana. How's it going, Chris?
Yeah, good, man. Pretty good. How are you?
Doing all right. Thanks for asking. Glad to have me on the line and appreciate the opportunity to pick your brain.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity, man. It's great to be on your right. Pretty humbling. So I'll answer what I can.
Cool, that's awesome. I know most of our listeners are probably familiar with you from the review we did last year in October, where we took the month of October to review The Raven and the Robot song by song.
It was amazing you guys to do that for me, eh?
Yeah, it was great. Eric Child, our mutual friend, sent me the email asking me if I could do a review of your album, and I said, yeah, sure. And every time I do a review, I always give a short review of the artist. But since we shared your story over the 4 weeks, this time around, I thought it would be cool to have an interview where we could chat and people get to know you personally and get the scoop from the source, right?
Yeah, definitely, yes.
Well, previously we learned that you had studied filmmaking, and I know that in filmmaking, a lot of the process in building a film is storyboarding, where you set up your concepts, and so what was the process that you went through to put together The Raven and the Robot?
The idea's in for the Raven Robot concept, or that was just in general how the process worked. That one, because it's always pretty different, so it's hard to say how the process works, but The Raven and the Robot was sort of inspired by some ideas I had for art, and there was a story that started to develop when I started making art, and like you said, through the film sort of background, which I never completed the course, but we made a few short films and we learned a few skills, and I was always more of the writing side. I used to write on my own outside of our studies, so that sort of, yeah. So the art sort of became a story, and then the story I wanted to transpose into music because it builds a way of telling it through sound, because sound makes feeling, and you can create like a landscape or a soundscape which make you envision a landscape in your mind. So that's what I wanted to do with it, because some of the music I listen to, some of my favourites have attempted things like it, and it just takes me away to a world when I listen to it. So that's how The Raven and the Robot developed, mainly through art and through that having that mind that doesn't want to sleep. When it has an idea, it wants to go with it, and it's usually based around writing on guitar or just experimenting with gear. Cool,
yeah. I remember listening to the album and listening to the way it was structured, and I kept thinking to myself how it reminded me a lot of Rush's 2112, and the fact that it built the story as it went along, and it made my imagination just jump out. Like I could envision the story as I was listening to the music. So it was very well done, and I really enjoyed that.
I'm glad it had that effect on someone.
It really did, yeah.
It feels good to know it worked on some level.
Now, how did your musical journey get started? Playing guitar and all that.
Just like guitars. I used to listen to Billy Idol, and Steve Stevens was an amazing guitarist. When I was a kid, like I was 10 years old, and I was going through my dad's cassette collection, and he always listened to the blues and stuff, but then there was this tape, like, who's that? And I put it on and said, I like some of the solos in this, it's a little bit different. It has a different edge to it. It was 11 of the best, so I had Rebel Yell and White Wedding and Flesh for Fantasy, and I remember hearing Steve Stevens solos, so that's when I started to like the sound of guitar, but then I remember telling the parents I wanted to play, and they put me through some piano lessons, and I learned a little bit about music that way. So, but then I always wanted to play guitar, but then now later in life I wish I stuck with piano, even though I can play keys and sort of, but I wouldn't say I play piano. So I wish I did stick with it, but that's how it started. I like the because his music seemed to be a mix of, there was rock and there was dance and there was synth elements all in it, especially on the what was it, the Cyberpunk album when that came out. I think it was '93 or something. Yeah, and that was a concept album, and it was really interesting concept. But a lot of the reviewers didn't like it. I think it reviewed pretty badly. But me being about 10 years old, and the imagery that was coming through in a lot of the songs, you know, it was a futuristic, post-apocalyptic sort of wasteland, and it was a nice big fold-out. It was only a cassette, it wasn't like a record like format, but the fold-out in the cassette with the lyrics and everything was pretty good. And so I liked that sort of when I learned about concept albums and concept music was through him as well. So and then that didn't have Steve Stevens on it. That album had a really different feel. So actually, I think he might have popped up on a few songs anyway. It doesn't matter. But yeah, that's sort of where the concept album thing came in, and then it all went on from there. As I grew up, I found metal and progressive rock and progressive metal and industrial, like White Zombie, and then I was like, there's so much concepts going on in the music that pop wasn't exploring and mainstream wasn't exploring. It all seemed to be love songs and breakup songs and teenage sort of songs, and metal was a whole other world. Like, it was fantastical, and it had a world of difference. It was so far apart from what was on television and radio around here at least. And it just seemed, you'd go by the albums and they wouldn't just be jewel cases. Maybe it was just the ones that were getting stocked, because they only ordered the good ones to get here. So they seemed to be really good art packages that come with the music. It wasn't just like buying a single that was like a sleeve and a song. It was really good packages that were coming from, I think it was like, I remember like Inside Out Records and things like that was releasing some pretty good stuff. So it's become a whole thing more than like I'm not trying to wash out the music side, but the whole production side of what surrounds the music. Fell in love with that too, the concepts and the arts.
Yeah, that's true. The concept art does go hand in hand with the music. I guess it gives the listener a visual representation of what the artist is trying to convey in the music. So yeah, I can totally agree with that. That's true. Yeah.
So then I guess just pursued that sort of thing, but never pursued it professionally, or never thought I'd take it anywhere. Just it was a hobby, you know. And then later in life, like now I'm 40, so it's like my mid-30s, I decided to try and actually do something with it. Been playing instruments and recording it, and making songs, so it was time to actually put them out. So that's how it progressed. Yeah, love the equipment and the instruments there.
Right. Well, you know, in the beginning, we didn't have the advantage of the digital equipment and stuff like that. That wasn't around yet. So did you get started on tape and 4-track, 8-track?
No, I started on computers, DAWs, digital audio workstations. I mean, there was a lot of gear that I used in the theatre world when I worked in corporate theatre and stage production. So we had to use like your mixers and your 48 channel mixers and things, and the lighting desks and vision switches, and there was a lot of analog gear. But it wasn't production equipment. I wasn't doing recording. It was sort of live stage production, and it was more set up and do a basic operate, you know. So I learned about the equipment and signal flow and gain structure and just the ins and outs of audio gear.
Right.
But then that was sort of when digital audio workstation was taking over, and it was going in computer. Probably late into that as well.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I never really had to do much like any tape or analog or anything really. Well, as a child, I remember my nana gave us a recorder that we could record straight on tape. Me and my brother made a radio show. Actually,
oh really?
It was really funny. It was hilarious.
Well, that's pretty cool.
That was the first time. Yeah.
So you got some experience in radio then.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's funny. I know when DAWs first started coming out, and for our listeners, those that don't know, a DAW is a digital audio workstation. That's what we're using right now to record this interview. I know Pro Tools was the first one to come out, and at the time it was the most expensive thing out there. So yeah.
The Pro Tools, everyone was very Pro Tools mentality. And there were a few other things around. And yeah, and buying gear, you were buying gear to get like cheap free versions of Pro Tools. I remember buying a MIDI controller or something that cost $100 Australian, you know, and you got Pro Tools with it, something like that. And audio gear, I think it was called, yeah. But I ended up using Cakewalk.
Well, that's pretty cool. So that's also an advantage of having the studio at home, because you know you're working off your own time. We worked in the studio when I first started. We had to go into a studio, and it was, you know, time is money, you know, and you make a mistake, and oh man, a lot of times we wish we could have done things differently or whatever, but because of time constraints and funding, it wasn't a possibility. But now with digital recording at home, I guess the sky's the limit.
I can imagine how difficult it would have been knowing you had to go there and make it happen. So yeah, I haven't had to really experience that using a home studio. We've had a little bit of studio experience, and it was actually, I don't want to talk badly about it, but it didn't happen. It was a failure. We recorded the drums, but then their system failed, and it took months to get it up and running. We ended up releasing my own version of it. We didn't use the drums that were recorded in the studio. It was a total waste of time. It would have been so good. We had a live drummer, and it was a really good thing that was going on there. It sounded awesome. But by the time we got it all up and running, everyone was too impatient. And I hear he's got it going again, so we're going to try again.
Well, yeah, we look forward to hearing from that. You know,
well, there's more songs still coming from that project. There was supposed to be more, and then Matt just put it on the back burner, big time. So, and then we released the Crow's Nest version of Black Electricity. But now the other guy, Cal, we're based back in local again. He was away, so and he's setting up his. I don't know if you remember me mentioning we had that shed that we were setting up as a recording studio and jam room.
Yeah, that's cool.
But that sort of so much things start and fall through. But that sort of fell through. So now he's setting up again in a place closer to home anyway.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, so hopefully that project's going to start. It hasn't really got a name. It was going to be called Jamwood. But yeah, it's something. There's things happening there, and that's probably going to go to the studio to get live drums on that, which isn't really heard in any of my music. There's no real live drums in any of it. So it's going to give it a nice new dynamic if we can get that happening.
Right.
So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I like your concept so far musically. You know, like you say, it's got a little bit of everything, a little bit of industrial, a little bit of the. You seem to paint with the broad stroke, and that's cool because it lends to a greater dynamic in your music. And a lot of people are afraid to venture out like that, but you know, this is cool that you're able to draw from different influences and different genres of music. It shows that your thinking process is a lot more broader than most people's, and that's really good.
It could largely come from not really being taught anything and sort of making it up as I'm going along. So
right. Okay.
It could have a lot to do with that.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I think being self-taught might help in that regard, because I've never really been stuck to any mold or way of playing or way of thinking about music. It's always been, I wonder what happens if I do this.
Right.
And I get impatient trying to learn on YouTube and trying to do tutorials and technically learn. It's sort of just having to find it and then look at the little screen and then have it and then pause and I just can't. I don't do it.
Right.
I just experiment on the instruments and see what stuff sounds like, and it's probably a very slow way of doing it. But I think what it's resulted in is something that's probably coming out quite unique.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and it's true that when you're studied or when you study something, sometimes you get it drilled into your head, and at times it becomes rigid and you become a slave to that knowledge. But it's cool that you're able to go beyond that and work in a free-form type of scenario.
I think it's probably good to have, but to have it not regimented is also a good thing to have it.
Right. And it's a good thing to have that structure, but it's also good to be able to go beyond that and to be able to work out your musical concepts in a more free form, right?
I see. Probably it's frustrating at times. Because just but no, I like working this way. So it's the way I can't work any other way. I've got a bit of a click.
Cool.
Yeah.
With that, with that in mind, what is a typical day in the studio for you then?
With that, I usually would decide which guitar I feel like playing, which usually depends what mood I'm in.
Oh, I see.
And set a tempo.
Right.
And then it becomes a tonal thing. I'd probably choose some sort of evolving synth sound or something. Just go for a search and a muck around and change some parameters and see what comes out. And that may not ever become a song, but that sort of is how it starts. And then what I'm playing on guitar, I might even end up picking up another guitar or going to another channel on the amp or pedal settings. Or by the end of the day, there might be a song that's formed that was nowhere near what began. Then I usually obsess on that, and it gets finished within a week. And yeah, so that's but I can't say there's a process. Sort of, it evolves based on the mood.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very mood orientated.
That works. Yeah, it's good to experiment with different ideas and different settings and whatnot, but I'm sure it's always good to fall back on what you're used to, and you go back into your routine. So yeah, that whatever makes the process move forward is good.
And it's probably a bit of a luxurious position to be in, but I've spent a few years collecting guitars. Like I was talking to a friend today, and the oldest guitar I bought here I bought 20 years ago. So it takes a while to have the luxury of being able to say, oh, what guitar am I going to play today? So,
right.
So I guess not everyone has that luxury of being like, and that helps with making the music sound more dynamic too, because there can be so many textures of sound by different combinations of instruments. Like the Raven and the Robot album, almost every song was a slightly different combination of which guitar was doing rhythm or lead or what bass guitar was being used. So the album doesn't become too sterile with every song had a different dynamic to it.
Right.
So that's sort of the writing process is very evolving. It depends what instrument I pick up. Yeah. And what sound I feel goes with what I'm playing, and then it sort of evolves from there.
Right. Now, when you started recording the Raven and the Robot Part 2, was that an extension of the first album, or was there a whole new process of thinking going into this one?
No, it's the same story. It continues chronologically, if you could say. It does. So, the end of Raven Robot 1, they crash landed on a planet, and then began to evolve into life again, and the planet became a new utopia.
Okay, I see.
So cool. Raven Robot 2 kicks off where there's it's a civilized planet by this stage. It's evolved to the point of pretty much where we're at now, where it's sort of become to the point of despair again. Like there's problems but this time it doesn't follow the metaphorical journey of what happens after. This time it sort of sticks with the people and the place, but the Raven Robot characters are still there as large godlike entities. They're not. So it's not planet Earth. It's not the world we live in. It's somewhere distant, fantastical fantasy story,
Right.
And, they've evolved from this crash of the Raven Robot, and beings there are sort of like a hybrid human Raven Robot. And they're having political dramas and pollution and wars and the same mistakes we're having, and so it happens again. But this time they escape into space. So there's supposed to be another album yet. To finish it, the last fold of that whole concept. So I don't want to spoil it too much, but it takes a different. It's less metaphorical this time around. It's much more literal, but it's a literal fantasy, not so. Yeah.
Right. Okay,
I
cool.
find it went a bit more grit, a bit more punk to me, but then it's got some weird electro gothy bits to it. I think it sounds different, but I don't know what the listeners hear.
Yeah. I'm sure that when people listen to it, that, they'll each get something out of it. Something that touches their spirit. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And that pretty much leads us into our next question here, and that is, what are your plans for future projects? What do you got cooking? What's coming up?
There's that, which is I can hear. Yeah, it's weird to say, but I can hear what I want it to sound like, and it's going to be different again to the first two installments of it. I don't know if the Sea of Orbs, if you heard that, sort of, I'm thinking along. It's heavy, but it's not. Yeah. Anyway, that. But then there's also that Jamwood that I mentioned earlier, my uncle, which is mainly a jamming band, who's still trying to get off the ground, but I think that's a bit closer again. That's where the Black Electricity track came from. And there's also still more Abysmal Dimension music that I need to complete, which I'm probably taking far too long to get on, but seem to go through bursts and create, and then it sort of stops for a while. I think it's natural. It's probably normal for most people. And then go on little sort of gear binges and buy a few new things. And so like this weekend, I'm in the process of, I'm going to gut the studio and repatch and make it all flow a bit better. I have some ideas to make it all fit and work a bit more functional and comfortable.
Right.
And then and I know that process usually come a month or two, there'll probably be a few more new tracks and things will be happening again. I bought a new acoustic guitar the other day because I didn't have one, and I downsized an amp because I'm in small space, and I got it's like a little spruik box, I guess.
Okay.
Busker's amp, that Boss, mate.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got it's like an interface, but it's also, you can sing into it. So it's just going to save space in my room without having the big cabinet and box head, which never gets used in there because it's too loud.
Right.
So, that's going to add different functionality to just the way things work in that room once I patch it all in. So, and from there, more music's going to evolve. It usually does. A few little upgrades or changes, I can promise.
Cool.
Can't help myself.
Yeah, well, that's the life of a musician. It's always growing, always evolving. And it's great to be able to sit here and talk with you and be able to hear how you work things through and how you put things together and how things evolve into a finished product. And that's great, to be able to get to learn from your concept, how you think things through.
Some things you do anyway is to keep yourself sane. It doesn't matter. I know it looks like we keep, spruiking it and we keep going, but there's no point not. But if it doesn't get traction, it doesn't matter either,
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's a good feeling to play and actually feel a song, and whether it's nice to share that song and have other people feel it. But at the end of the day, if you felt that song, that's what it's about.
I've always seen music as a form of therapy, not only for the listener, but also for the one writing, And to me, that's the beauty of music, because a lot of times someone will hear a song and they'll hear something that touches them, or it helps them cope with the situation they're going through, or whatever it may be, whatever issue they may be going through. Music is a great therapist in that sense, I guess.
Yeah, man, it processes things, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, we only have one question left, and we usually leave this one for last because sometimes it's the hardest one to answer. So, if you were stuck on a deserted island, what album would you like to have with you?
Yeah, I had to think a little bit about it, because it's a hard one, because you're stuck there, you're stuck there. You don't want, there's some great albums, but you don't want to kill it, So I went for the most dynamic album, the one that has the most changes in it, the most different sounds that I can think of, and it was Empath, Devin Townsend's Empath.
Okay.
And I have to go to double album because it's longer, right? So get a bit more time out of it.
Right.
But the album just takes so many turns there's lots of different styles. You know, it goes from some pretty heavy stuff to almost Disney, and a lot of stuff in between. And then the bonus disc is of demos sounds as good as you know, most people's A grade stuff. So
Right.
yeah, I think that's so much re-listenability. It's not like you go through and go, oh, that's the same style. Like, there's great punk albums, there's great rock albums, there's great metal albums, but that album I can't really classify as where it will be. Because they call it progressive, I guess, but it just goes everywhere.
Right.
So I think, and it has an island feel to it. There's moments in the album where he takes you to a deserted island, and you know,
Right.
and you can feels like you're sitting there. Some ambient moments of the album where it actually takes you to an island.
Well, that's cool.
And
That's cool.
It's really cool. So yeah, I had to choose Empath. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, and the reason we asked this question is because we'd like to see what's behind the artists, you know, what they like to listen to. Maybe turn other people on to something new, something different. I mean, maybe there's someone out there who hasn't heard Devin Townsend, and this will give them a chance to check them out.
I'll probably plug it too much, but
Yeah.
you know, that album, I love it, man. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good choice. All right, then, where can people find you on the web? Let's give a shout out to all your media platforms and websites.
Yeah, man. I've got the Bandcamp up and running now. It's Kristopher Battilana, which is always a bit of a mouthful and hard to type. So it's Battilana, and Christopher spelled with a K, just
Right.
to make it even harder for everybody. yeah, we'll keep it underground by making his name hard to spell, you know.
Right.
Yeah. But if you search that, or if you can, another way to find it, which is an easier one to remember, is The Raven and the Robot.
Right. Cool. Okay.
And if you Google that, it'll take you. It should find the music, I hope.
Right.
But then it's on all platforms, Spotify and YouTube and all of the other ones in between, iTunes and Apple Music. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Distribution is great these days. You don't have to do much, do you?
Yeah, that's the advantage of the technology nowadays, that anyone can put out an album and have it distributed a lot easier. Back in the day, I know it was a lot harder because you had to have a record company and go through that. And nowadays, it's a lot simpler, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because it's a bit time-consuming and does take some work to get it through. But once you do, you know, it's well worth it in the end, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But it's all cool, you know, because if you're passionate about what you're doing, then, you know, more power to you, I say. And that's why I love doing these interviews, you know, to spotlight artists and give them an opportunity to get themselves heard and, you know, give people a chance to check them out and, who knows, maybe become fans. So hopefully this interview will help get you some traffic to your websites and give people a chance to discover Kristopher Battilana.
Every morning you wake up and you hope to check stats, and you wonder if it's blown up. Nah, just joking. But wouldn't it be nice one day to wake up and see something's gone bumpers?
Right.
But you never know. It's a lottery. But
It is. It really
like
is.
you said before, without paid promotions or a label promoting it is very easy to get lost in the haystack.
True. Yeah. Well, that's why Rock the Alphabet works with indie artists and helping promote them.
It's great. I love the alphabet.
Yeah, it's really cool. You know, when Rock the Alphabet first started, you know, the boss man, he got the playlist going there on Spotify, and when A through Z, and that's where we get our motto. You know, A through Z, we got a playlist for you, and we got you there on the playlist now. You know, Kristopher Battilana's on there, as well as other artists that people can discover if they want to go check them out.
Yeah, it's a good bunch of playlists over there.
But yeah, that's how I got from there. I ended up at Radio, and that's just been great, you know, working with everyone and being able to be a support to other artists.
Man, I enjoy Radio. I try to get it on at work at times because everyone's stuck on the same two radio stations here. Sometimes I try and get on at work, and it's a good mix, and everyone enjoys it, you know. But
Right.
but once again, getting them to install apps on their phones and using it it's all people, it's just too easy to go and do the same old thing every day. But
Right. Yeah, a lot of times people, they gravitate towards the simplest and stuff, but there are those adventurous people that will go out and search. People
Yeah,
always complain, "Hey, there's no good music." Oh, there's good music. You just gotta look for it.
right. Just got to look
And
for it. Yeah, it's
yeah,
there. Yeah.
and sometimes you don't have to look too far.
No, they don't have to look too far. All you have to do is look. It's not
Right.
difficult, and all the resources are there. They've got all the platforms to look on. Yeah,
Right, and that's what's cool, to be able to go out and discover something new, check out a new artist, new band, something you haven't heard before, something out of the ordinary. It's pretty cool to find those hidden treasures.
I love the underground playlist. There's always something new.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Well, Chris, I really appreciate your time and glad to get a chance to pick your brain there a little bit, give everyone a chance to get to know you, and it's been really awesome to have you on the line and be able to get a chance to talk with you.
Anytime, man.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate your friendship. And who knows, if the stars align, maybe one day we'll get a chance to meet each other in person.
Yeah, man. It's great knowing you. Yeah, man. We'll try and get my ass in an airplane one day.
Yeah, that would be great, man. Maybe one day soon, hopefully. But it's been a real pleasure to chat with you, brother.
Thanks, man. It's good to talk to you, dude.
Most definitely, brother. I really appreciate your time. Well, music lovers, that's it for another episode of Backstage Pass on the Squiggle Spin. My deepest thanks to Kristopher Battilana for being on the show today. And don't forget to look for his new album, The Raven and the Robot Part 2, available now on all streaming platforms. This is Squiggly Myers saying thanks again for being a part of Backstage Pass here on the Squiggle Spin.